And it is a great pleasure to be here, and it's a great pleasure to be here with my parliamentary colleague Penny Wong, the Shadow Minister for Finance and the Trade and the Leader of the Opposition in the Senate. And can I say of Penny, this rather takes me back to debates in the Helen Mayo Refectory at Adelaide University in the 1980s when she and I were student politicians together. And I would like to say something positive about Penny in spite of the fact that she sits on the other side of the fence, because Penny does take her role very seriously. On behalf of South Australia and Australia, Penny is a serious policy person. She's a tough political operator, but I know that she wants to put good decisions at the forefront. Now, I might have different views about how we get to creating jobs and growth, how we might have social justice outcomes in this country and create enterprise, etc. But I know that that Penny Wong, as one of the leaders of another major party, knows that she has to be responsible in the promises that she makes and how she delivers in government. And for that reason, I am pleased to be here with her today to talk about both of our visions for our state and our country. This election presents us with a tremendous opportunity here in South Australia. And of course, we don't want to be too partisan, but it is a debate about the different choices that are available to South Australians today and on July the 2nd. The Turnbull government has a very clear economic plan for the nation. But South Australia really does benefit dramatically from that plan in a way that perhaps in all my 10 elections running for election in South Australia, I haven't seen before. And it seems to me that the government's economic plan, if you were writing an economic plan for South Australia, this would be it. And let me explain. First of all, the number one item on the economic plan is about creating an economy through the new economy in innovation and science. Number two is defence industry. Number three is support for the free trade agreements and how we can maximise those. And number four is corporate tax cuts for small and medium enterprises, income tax cuts, creating a sustainable budget into the future. There is, of course, 5 and 6, which is cracking down on multinationals, the diversions tax, making sure everyone pays their fair share, and also guaranteed funding into the future for health, education and roads. But I'm going to focus on the first 4, because those first 4 are very important to South Australia. Let's just take innovation and science. We know here in South Australia that we cannot continue with an old-fashioned economy. We are fortunate that in manufacturing, advanced manufacturing is booming in Australia. There are still 900,000 people employed in manufacturing in this country. The last quarter in March was the best quarter, so in December last year and then in March. So for the last 6 months, we've had the best 2 quarters in manufacturing since April 2004 in terms of new jobs, new businesses, new investment, exports. So those people that say that manufacturing is dying on its feet are really trying to create a crisis that does not exist. Certainly we are moving towards more advanced manufacturing, high technology industries, and great South Australian businesses are doing that, and they are making money and creating jobs. So I'm very optimistic about manufacturing, and I'm very excited, I might tell you, to be the Minister for Industry, because for South Australia, that portfolio is particularly important for our state in moving to the new economy. And in innovation and science, we have great opportunities here in South Australia. We have tremendous businesses, 3 great universities that are doing wonderful work in terms of startups, technology, commercialising research. We have, of course, the Thebarton Precinct, trying to turn new creations in the biomedical sphere into services and products that create jobs. Flinders University has, of course, at Tonsley, which is the flavour of the month, a dedicated area, precinct, which has been designed to turn startups into businesses, to turn research into commercialised businesses, creating jobs. And the national government is trying to treble, quadruple that through the National Innovation and Science Agenda, which I'm responsible for, that Malcolm and I released last December. The first item of which, I think the largest item of which, is the commercialisation of research, because we are 6th in the OECD in terms of the quality of research, but we're 33rd in terms of commercialising that research. So for me, of course, we're coming off a low base, and as a minister, I should be able to get us off the bottom of the ladder, hopefully. So for South Australia, there are great opportunities. Arguably, Adelaide University is the best medical research university, probably after Melbourne University, in the entire country. We have the great North Terrace precinct with SAMRI 1, hopefully one day SAMRI 2, with the new medical school being created there, with the University of South Australia's Health Sciences building, of course the hospital, which eventually I'm sure will open, which will play into and support those particular assets that we have there. So that's innovation and science. But defence industry, I mean, nobody in South Australia could help but notice that the Turnbull government is putting its money where its mouth is in terms of defence industry, and that this can only be good for South Australia. That's why we put the Centre for Defence Industry Capability here in South Australia, an industry growth centre that Labor has promised about a month ago to close. All of the industry growth centres are to be closed. The Centre for Defence Industry Capability is one of those. That's a great shame because it's the only one based here in Adelaide. The Cyber Security Industry Growth Centre certainly will be national, and there'll be an Adelaide node. But the other industry growth centres are interstate. So I'm disappointed with the decision that they've made to close the industry growth centres. But we put the Centre for Defence Industry Capability here because Adelaide is the centre of defence industry. As Nigel said, not because of some kind of welfare state mentality, but on the basis of merit. Adelaide is the centre of defence industry in this country. And we've just announced, over the last few months, a $90 billion naval ship build in terms of offshore patrol vessels, future frigates, submarines, that will turbocharge that part of our economy. And we're not going to spend that overseas. We've awarded those contracts here in Australia. Of course, we'll have partners like DCNS. But what a lot of South Australians don't realise is not only will the subs, of course, be built here, but the construction at Osborne will transform that part of our city. And that, of course, is steel that Arium can provide because they make construction steel. The 3,100 jobs that will be created through the submarine and the naval shipbuilding contracts will have a massive impact throughout the economy as all the ancillary industries and jobs are created. One thing that people don't know, which I think surprises them when they hear it, is the factory at Osborne that DCNS will be beginning to build this year is bigger than Adelaide Oval. Higher, longer, wider than Adelaide Oval. Imagine the steel, the concrete, the infrastructure that will be going in to build a factory of that size. Because the way they build submarines now is effectively a old-fashioned manufacturing process where one sub begins and as soon as it's halfway through, another sub starts behind it, etc., and they pop out the other end. It is a remarkable process. So imagine what that will do to transform our state in terms of spending through infrastructure and construction, which is great news. And of course, the defence industry commitment that the government has made will flow right through to many other businesses, businesses like BAE and Lockheed Martin and Saab, Pacific Marine Batteries. You can imagine how they felt when we made the announcement about the submarines. They're the only company in the world that only makes batteries for submarines. There are other businesses that make batteries for submarines, but this is their only part of their job. This is their only job. They're the best at it in the world. So we breathe life into all of those industries into the future. It's a massive commitment to our state. Thirdly, the free trade agreements. There are some politicians that want to unravel the free trade agreements. There are some politicians in this state who want to pretend that the free trade agreements are costing Australians and South Australians jobs. They want to pretend that somehow, if they re-erect tariff barriers and end free trade, this will somehow save jobs. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. Those politicians that want to unravel free trade agreements, whether it's with China, Japan, Korea, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they are going to damage our economy here in South Australia. We are a trading nation and a trading state. 40% of our gross state product is in agriculture. The wine industry is now booming again through investment, new export opportunities because of the free trade agreements. Most people that you know in this state that you talk to, I'm sure Nigel McBride would confirm this, we've been worrying about the wine industry for 5 years minimum, 10 years probably maximum, while they've been going through difficult times. You talk to anybody in the wine industry today, they're optimistic about the future of their industry because of the free trade agreements. Unwinding those free trade agreements will cost us jobs in this state. We need to find new markets in agriculture, and that's what we are doing. We're making it easy. Agriculture, mining, advanced manufacturing, services, international students, aged care services. Because of our ageing population here in South Australia, we've become one of the best places in the world for the provision of retirement village living and aged care services. Why wouldn't we want to take that expertise to mainland China, where there's obviously an enormous burgeoning older population looking for how to provide services to older people as cheaply as possible and at high quality as possible because of the scale. So free trade agreements are vitally important. Of course, they should be fair trade. But let's not throw slogans around and pretend that you can put tariff barriers back up and somehow this will mean a panacea for our state. The opposite is true. We need to keep moving forward, not turn the clock back. And finally, on corporate tax cuts. We are the small business and medium enterprise state. Of all the states in Australia, we have the largest number as a percentage of our economy of small and medium enterprises. Of course, we have some very large businesses as well, and we're very glad that they're here. But the largest part of our economy is small and medium enterprises. So a tax cut for businesses of up to $10 million turnover a year has a really significant impact here in this state. And I'm sure I'm not telling anybody any news when I tell them that South Australia has the lowest growth rate of any other state in Australia, I think even lower than Tasmania, and therefore we do need to support our business community. We can't have more taxes, more regulation, an anti-development attitude. We need the opposite. And so the Turnbull government's policy in our economic plan of cutting corporate tax rates has a significant impact here in the state that relies most on small and medium enterprises. That corporate tax cut will give our business people the opportunity to reinvest in their businesses, to tide them over if they're struggling at the moment, to keep the extra 1 or 2 employees in their business. And so on July the 2nd, this is an important election. This isn't an election for giving away money we don't have. Bill Shorten has promised more taxes, $100 billion more taxes. It's the last thing our economy needs. $165 billion of more spending. Finally, they've adopted some of the Commonwealth Government's savings measures that they've been blocking in the Senate. So now their black hole is down to about $33 billion rather than $65 billion. But now is not the time for $100 billion of new taxes, massive spending commitments that we can't afford. Now is the time for a stable Turnbull government to be re-elected with an economic plan that puts the economy and jobs and growth first and foremost in our economy. So on July the 2nd, I hope that you will vote for the Liberal Party and support the continuation of the economic plan that we are putting in place. Thank you very much.